Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in. And we have entered probably the dead point of the NFL offseason, where the NFL draft is concluded, free agency is concluded, and a lot of talk is going to be what we expect of teams coming up into next season, what we think teams will be, how many wins. All this stuff is going to be projected into what players and teams are going to be next season. And this video is going to be no different. This is going to be my way too early predictions as we are in the month of May and the training camp doesn't start till July. We're going to give our way too early predictions of the win totals of each team for this 2023 NFL season. But before I get into that, make sure you guys leave this video a like as it continues to help this channel to grow and to beat the algorithm. And if you are one of the people that are watching this video and you are not subscribed to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss any of the content that I post. But it's time to give our way too early predictions. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Today's video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. For me, it is very important to have a VPN to protect my online privacy. It'd be very, very creepy if there was someone out there who kept a log of every single thing that you did online. So why let your internet provider really do that to you online? The best thing to do is to get yourself a VPN, and why not go with ExpressVPN, the best VPN available. Personally, I like it for the fact that you can unlock Netflix shows that you do not get in the US market. Now, one show that I've started to get myself into is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You search Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the US, doesn't come up, but you can switch your location to Canada and you can research Brooklyn Nine-Nine again, and bam, it pops up right then and there, and you can catch up on your episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, if you click the link in the description below, you will get 3 free months of ExpressVPN. Just by clicking the link below and you sign up today, you will get 3 months free of ExpressVPN. All you have to do is click the link down below, and you will get ExpressVPN. Now, let's just get back to the video. All right, the first team we're going to go with is the Arizona Cardinals. I probably have this team. I can see them between 3 and 5. I can see them between a 6 and 9 win football team. This one is going to be a little bit tough, but I think I'm going to have to put them at a 3 to 5 wins, and this is why. I love the fact that they moved up to get Paris Johnson Jr. to solidify their offensive line. Buda Baker requested a trade, so we don't know how that's going to play out. DeAndre Hopkins is probably going to be on the move at some point, at least in my opinion. And we still have Kyler Murray coming back from the ACL injury. When you look at this team, they don't have a lot on defense outside of Isaiah Simmons, assuming Buda Baker does get that trade request. And offensively, they have some pieces. The trading of DeAndre Hopkins and the health of Kyler Murray, I think is really going to hurt this football team. Honestly, can I see them winning no more than 5 games, despite adding the best tackle in the draft in Paris Johnson Jr. out of the Ohio State. I had to bring that in there. I just don't see this team really doing too much this year, to be honest. Even with the new head coach, Jonathan Gannon, coming in there from Philadelphia, I just don't see this team still being one of the top tier teams that we really have in this league. So we're going to go on to the Atlanta Falcons. I have them at the same projection as I would a team like the Arizona Cardinals. I think the biggest question, of course, coming into this season for the Falcons is the quarterback position. What are you going to get out of Desmond Ridder? They did add Bijan Robinson in the draft, and I like Drake London and Kyle Pitts as well, but defensively, Grady Jarrett is getting a little older in the tooth. They did add Jesse Bates. They did add Jeff Okudah for that secondary. And they have an older Calais Campbell. So they did improve a little bit on that side of the ball. But when you look at this Atlanta Falcons team, they have offensive weapons. But the biggest question is the quarterback that is going to spread the football to those weapons in Desmond Ridder. And even though they did sign Taylor Heineke in a free agency to be the backup, this team still, I think, questionably is the quarterback position. And until I see the improvement from a guy like a Desmond Ridder, I think you're still going to have to wait and see on this Falcons team, and I'm going to put them at the 3-5 win mark. Next is the Baltimore Ravens. They did a lot of improvements. They made a lot of, I ain't gonna say a lot, but they did some things to help improve this football team. We were bringing in Odell Beckham. They re-signed Roquan Smith before last season, before the offseason. So I really like what Baltimore is going to bring. I could see this football team in that competitive division being a 6-9 win football team. They could easily be 10, but I still don't see them overtaking the Cincinnati Bengals in this division, and they're right there with Cleveland, who I think is going to be more improved. Baltimore, they've done some things. I like Lamar Jackson getting that deal. I like them bringing Odell Beckham Jr. I like the drafting of Zay Flowers. That is a very underrated move to help bring more weapons to the offense, and we can say, I think this is the core. This is the best weapons that Lamar Jackson has had probably his entire career. And even in this MVP season, you got J.K. Dobbins coming back healthy. Gus Edwards, as long as that running back position. On this side, I really, really do like what the Ravens are doing. Obviously, they lose Marcus Peters. They don't have him in the fold. And I just like what this team is doing offensively. I just still don't see them taking over for that Bengals team, and I really can see them being right there with the Browns and the Steelers, because I think Browns will be more improved, and so will the Steelers be a little better football team. Buffalo Bills. This has been my Super Bowl pick the last 2 years. This has been the team that I really expect to win a lot of football games, and I still expect them to win a lot of football games. I'll put them between a 10-13 win mark. Mainly, Josh Allen, I still think I'm not going to say take a little steps, but he has to improve on some of the mistakes that he made last year. James Cook and Damian Harris will be very good in the backfield. They did sign Latavius Murray. They have Nyheim Hines. Of course, Davis, Davis, and Shakir. Really solid wide receiver threats. And they add Dalton Kincaid at the end of the first round to go along with a solid offensive line. Von Miller coming back healthy. Tre'Davious White. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. I like the things that they've done. Now, they did lose Tremaine Edmunds. I think that's going to hurt a little bit with this football team defensively. But offensively, they could just score so many points in bunches. I still believe that this is one of the Super Bowl contending teams that we have in this league. So I'm going to put them at the 10-13 win mark for 2023. Next is the Carolina Panthers. This is a team I think they did a ton of improvements to this football team. They have done a ton of improvements. Drafting Bryce Young, #1 overall. Miles Sanders to add to that backfield. Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. They bring Andy Dalton in as a backup. You have Brian Burns in your defense. You bring in a guy like Von Bell to your defense. J.C. Horn, I think, should come back healthy, and I think he's going to improve. So this team I think it's going to be a lot improved, or right around that same 6-9 win mark. Of course, the changing of the quarterbacks and the changing of some of the things that you're going to have to bring to a guy like a Bryce Young in his offense is going to be something that Frank Wright, their new head coach, I think is going to be a really, really keen guy that plays the biggest part as to how he develops in year one. But I really think that this Carolina Panthers football team, they weren't a terrible football team last year. Of course, they get a late season run, and I still think they did a lot of improvements to this football team to get them better. But I just don't see them getting above a maybe 6-9 win mark, even though I like the offseason that they have personally. Next, we're going to go into my team. We're going to go into the Chicago Bears. I don't see them with 3-5 wins. I'm going to put the Bears right at that 6-9 win mark. Now, when you look at the Bears and the things that they've done, bring in TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmunds at that linebacker position, which helps them a lot, which last year, when they traded Roquan Smith, Jack Sanborn was the only thing that they really had left on this roster as far as the linebacker position goes. They lose David Montgomery, yes, but they bring in Deontay Foreman. They bring in Roshan Johnson in the draft. They bring in Darnell Wright at the right tackle spot, which was the worst spot in the Bears' offensive line last year. To bring in Nate Davis to help with that offensive line. You have young secondary in Brisker. Jalen Johnson, when healthy, is still a very good corner. Kyler Gordon, Eddie Jackson back healthy too. And you have an offense that DJ Moore, you're adding him to the squad. Chase Claypool is in year 2, and he should out year 1.5, but he should be more acclimated. Darnell Mooney back healthy. And of course, Justin Fields, I think is going to take another leap in his improvement, and which is why I'm going to keep the Bears at the 6-9 win mark. I really think that this team is very much improved from what they had last year. ending 2022. I don't still really see them as a playoff contender just yet, but I can see them knocking on the doorstep to be a playoff contender. Next, we're going to have the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to put them at the 10-13 win mark, but their defense did take a little bit of a hit, losing Von Bell, losing Jesse Bates. They did have a guy like Sam Herbert who's solid off the line. They drafted Myles Murphy. They have Trey Hendrickson to help with that pass rush. So, and then you have Joe Burrow, who I think could possibly be an MVP candidate. You have Joe Mixon to help with the running back, Chase Brown, who they drafted, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, along with Irv Smith Jr., who they brought in on a one-year deal with Orlando Brown Jr. to help with that offensive line. So I still believe that this Cincinnati Bengals team is going to be a top-tier team that we have in this league. Now, it's interesting to see how they're going to replace the safety position with Bates and Von Bell being gone. Two of your bigger playmakers on that side of the ball. There's where I think the biggest question lies for this team going into this season. But I still think with the offense that they have and their ability to score points in bunches, they could be a 10-13 win football team. Next is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Now, I'm going to put the Cleveland Browns at that 6-9 mark. You have a full season with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback. Nick Chubb is one of your very underrated running backs that we have in this league. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, who they brought in, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think can have a better season now that he has a better quarterback for the full entire season than Deshaun Watson. On your defensive side of the ball, you have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I think is a very solid football player. To go with Myles Garrett off that edge. Denzel Ward, who's one of the better lockdown corners in football. I think Greg Delpit is a very good safety for them. Greg Newsome as well in the quarterback spot. You add Dalvin Tomlinson on your interior of your defensive line. I really believe that this Cleveland Browns team is definitely going to be a better football team now that they have Deshaun Watson for a full slate of games versus him being suspended until like week 11, week 12 last year. I really think that this Cleveland Browns team is going to be right there, that 6-9 win football team, a little bit average, but I still think they will be around that mark, even with Deshaun Watson as their full-time starter going into this year. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, they are in a competitive division. The Giants were a very good football team last year. The Eagles, we all know what they did, but the Cowboys were still able to ride that and still stay steady afloat. And I still can see them as a 10-13 win football team heading into 2023. Dak Prescott, of course, I think he made some strides. You're going to lose Ezekiel Elliott, but what did you get for him? Tony Pollard is a question with his health. They bring in Deuce Vaughn in the draft in that special moment. I really loved it, but I think he's a very dynamic running back that can do things not only in the running game, but in the receiving game as well. That's going to help. Adding Brandon Cooks was a big-time deal for them. They needed an extra weapon. They got him. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Now, the question with the offense is their offensive line and their ability to stay healthy. But if that offensive line is healthy, it's probably one of the best in football with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin heading that front. Now, you look at them on the defensive side of the ball, they bring in Stephon Gilmore, one of the better shutdown corners. You have Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Trayvon Diggs. Vander Esch had a really solid season last year. I really believe that this Dallas Cowboys football team, they have the makings to be a contender in that NFC East. Playoff contender, definitely. Making the playoffs, I think they're going to be there. And they are going to be between that 10-13 win mark hanging into 2023. Next is the Denver Broncos. Now, if this football team isn't improved with Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, they bring in Mike McGlinchey, they have Jerry Jeudy. Javonte Williams is going to come back healthy. He missed most of last year with the injuries. Baron Browning, Patrick Surtain, who I think is one of the better corners that we have in this league. Justin Simmons, one of the more complete safeties that we have in football. So when you look at this Denver Broncos team, offensively, they should be able to score points in bunches. They should be with Sean Payton leading the Rams. I still have them as a 6-9 win football team. They are still in a very, 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 very competitive AFC West division. I know I was wrong about that last year. Coaching of Sean Payton to pair with Russell Wilson and the weapons that they have on this offensive side of the ball is going to help this football team a ton and be a better football team offensively than they were last year under Nathaniel Hackett. So I'm going to have them in a 6-9 win. Next is the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm not going to lie, drafting Jahmyr Gibbs early in the first round, I think was a bit of a head scratcher until they traded DeAndre Swift. So that made more sense now with the trade of Swift. even though Swift was a bigger impact to this football team. Losing Jamal Williams doesn't help, but you bring in him and David Montgomery for my Bears. Now, you're going to have the first 6 games without Jameson Williams, which I thought he was going to be a key part coming into this year. But you have one of the reigning, I'm going to say a defensive rookie of the year candidate last year at Aiden Hutchinson to go along with James Houston rushing the passer. With this secondary, Emmanuel Mosley, you bring in Cam Sutton, you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That is going to help with this secondary a ton. At the linebacker position, you bring in Jack Campbell in the draft. You have Alex Anzalone, who's still a productive football player. Markham Rodriguez is still productive. And you have a very solid offensive line with Sewell and Decker with your tackle spots. So for the Detroit Lions team, I'm going to have them at a 6-9 wins football team. They could be around that area. I really think they can. At this point, I think they are going to be still a very good improved football team. Next is the team I hate is the Green Bay Packers. And I'm not doing this to be any type of biasness. I'm not doing this because I hate them at all. But when you look at this Green Bay Packer football team, I just don't think they're ready to win. If you're going to be honest, I just don't think they're ready to win. Aaron Jones, very good productive running back. You have Christian Watson, who I think can do some things in the passing game. A.J. Dillon as well, running back. You add Jaden Reed in the draft. Looking at this roster on paper offensively, it's not a very great offense. Even if they would have had an Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers saved them in a lot of games last year, it's not a very great offensive roster. Defensively, Jair Alexander, and he's healthy, he's a very solid corner, one of the better corners. Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, when he's healthy. It's just this football team. Some of the things that they've done, I'm not going to say hair-scratching. It's just when you look at this roster, it's still maybe a year or so away from being back into the level that they were when they had an Aaron Rodgers. And the biggest question mark is, what are you going to get out of Jordan Love? What are you going to see in Jordan Love? Now, I believe he can be productive. Is this team, and is he at a level of, I want to say, development where he can really steer this ship for this football team? It is still remaining to be seen. So with that, I'm going to have the Packers at a 3-5 win football team. So when we look at the next team is the Houston Texans. They are still, I think, at the 3-4 range for this team. Getting C.J. Stroud from the Ohio State University does help this football team. Trading up to get Will Anderson Jr. helps this football team on defense. But they don't have a lot at the wide receiver position. They just don't. Robert Woods, it's not the same player. Nico Collins was solid. We're going to see what John Mechie is going to be coming off the leukemia battle. And actually, I want to just give kudos to him. It's great to see him not only getting back on the field, but just living life after having leukemia. I'm so happy to see that. I am so happy. You still have one of the best left tackles in the game in Larry Tunsil. It's just on the defensive side of the ball. Jerry Hughes did have a big spark for this team. Jalen Petrie, very underrated. He's going to, I think, continue to elevate. Jimmy Ward, who they signed in the offseason. Derek Stingley Jr. So they have a solid secondary. I just still, and Denzel Perryman, a linebacker, but I just still think this team has a ways away. And I think the wide receiver position can be, I want to say, still addressed, and it's probably have some more improvement to do, even though you bring in Noah Brown. You bring in Nathaniel Dale. You have Amari Rodgers, who he has talent, but he wasn't able to show it or hasn't shown it with the Green Bay Packers. So I still think this Houston Texans team, 3-5 wins. You are going to have the Indianapolis Colts. I still have this team in 3-5 wins as well. Bringing in Anthony Richardson is going to help with this football team, but I don't think that's going to pay right away right now because of the holes that they have on this roster. I still believe that this Colts football team, they have some growing pain. And it's not even going to be sure if Anthony Richardson is going to be the starting quarterback heading into this year. And you can still have Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback. So I still believe at this point with this Indianapolis Colts football team, they still have a ways away. With Shane Steichen coming in, you still have a ways away with this Colts football team, but you can see what direction they're trying to go in. But I still have them at that 3-5 win range. Next is the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team I think can take the next step. I really believe this Jacksonville Jaguars team can really start to take the next step and be a very contending football team going into this 2023 season. They ended last year with 9 wins. They have Trevor Lawrence, who I think is going to continue to get better, to one of the better quarterbacks that we have in this league. Christian Kirk really proved he was a really good signing. They did add Calvin Ridley at the trade deadline, even though he wasn't able to play due to the suspension. He's going to be back and in a Jaguar uniform for him. And then on his defensive unit, Josh Allen, you have a guy like Rashawn Jenkins who played well. You have a guy like Sisco who played well. You have Devin Lloyd who played well. Oluokun, who led the league in tackles. So this defensive unit is not really one that screams out a name, but I believe on offense, you have some pieces to work with Zay Jones, with Everett Ingram, with Christian Kirk and Ridley, with Lawrence and Etienne, that you can have a very good and contending Jacksonville Jaguars football team. And the thing that Doug Peterson has been doing is getting Trevor Lawrence to play better and better and better every single game. And we've seen that. And I think they can take the next step and become possibly a 10-win football team. Just think about it. They ended last year with 9. I could think they will be a 10-win team. That's just me. Go close to a 10-win team. Next, we are going to have the Kansas City Chiefs. Easily 10 to 13 wins with this football team. Reigning MVP and Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes. You have a very, very solid unit around him with the guy like a Pacheco, with the guy like Sky Moore, who I think is going to get more of a role. Valdez-Scantling played well. Tony played well. And, of course, you have the best tight end in football and Travis Kelce. They had some losses. They lost Frank Clark due to the free agent move. They had Juju Smith-Schuster walk away. I mean, it is Andy Reid. It is Patrick Mahomes. We thought they weren't going to be good without Tyreek Hill. We didn't think we would see them as the reigning Super Bowl champion once they traded Tyreek Hill. L'Jarius Sneed defensively, still a very solid player. Chris Jones, obviously one of the best defensive tackles that we have in football. Willie Gay and Nick Bolton at their linebacker position play a very solid football. Justin Reed as well. So this football team, you just can't count out Mahomes. You can't count on Andy Reid at this point. 10 to 13 wins. The Los Angeles Chargers. This could be a 6-9 win football team as well. Now, I like the things that they've done over the last year or so as far as this football team goes. We see what Austin Eckler, we still have to wait to that to play out. But Justin Herbert, I think he's going to take another step. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they bring in Quentin Johnston, a very, very good pickup for them, as in Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen haven't really been healthy. Now, you still have Joey Bosa, still have Khalil Mack, you still have Jason Jackson, Derwin James, one of the better safeties. Asante Samuel Jr. is rising and rising. So you can see this team as a 6-9 win football team when healthy. Their problem, I think, last year was injuries. If they are able to secure some of those injuries, you're going to see a lot better of a football team. Next is the LA Rams. You're going to have them in a 3 to 5 win mark. For me personally, I think this is a time where this team is in rebuild mode. Trading Jalen Ramsey, trading Allen Robinson. Matthew Stafford is not getting any younger. Cooper Kupp I didn't think he was up there in age until last year. He had an inability to stay healthy. This defense is definitely not the same defense that won him a Super Bowl in 2021. Of course, Aaron Donald is one of the best defenders I've ever seen play football. It's just at this point, this team is in a state of rebuild. It's just at this point, that's how you look at it. This Rams football team, they lost a ton over the last couple of seasons. It's definitely last offseason. You just don't see them being that great. Injuries, of course, dealt with them a lot last year. But when you're in the rebuilding mode, I think there's still moves to be made. And honestly, this team is still getting older, so I'm going to have to put the Rams at a 3 to 5 win mark right now. Next is the Miami Dolphins. You can see them I'm going to put them at 6-9. And the reason I'm going to put them at 6-9 is what are we going to get from Tua health? When healthy, we know he's that. It's just a matter of Tua's health. Now, they did add Jalen Ramsey. Speaking of the Rams getting rid of him, they traded Jalen Ramsey. They have Xavier Howard, so they have 2 lockdown, shutdown corners. Christian Wilkins has been very good for them. Jalen Phillips starting to be better. Jerome Baker, Bradley Chubb. So they do have the interior. They do have the defensive pieces, along with Waddle, Hill, Mostert. They have a lot of speed on the offense still. And Braxton Berrios in the slot, I think, is a very underrated signing. You have Austin Jackson, Teron Armstead, alongst the offensive line, it wasn't that great last year. I think they're going to be better this year. But I still have them as a 6-9 win football team. Because, number one, injuries, they played a lot for them last year, too, especially with the quarterback position. They did bring in Mike White as a backup, but it's just a matter of what we're going to get at a Tua. We know what the weapons can do. It's just a matter of Tua. Next is the Minnesota Vikings. I'm still going to have them at that 10 to 13 win mark. They did win a lot of close games last year. And if somebody was to tell me they could take a step back, I wouldn't even argue with that. I would not even argue with that. But you do lose Adam Thielen, but you bring in Jordan Addison. KJ Osborne was very solid. Kirk Cousins at one point in the season was in MVP discussions. He wasn't even in the top, but he was in that discussion. Now, defensively, you still have Harrison Smith Danielle Hunter, when healthy, is a very solid player. And was one of the worst defenses last year. They bring in Byron Murphy to help with that corner spot. So I do like some of the things that this team has done defensively. Offensively, you still have one of the better units in football. TJ Hockenson is now going to get a full year with Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Madison. So, and Jalen Reagor played better when he was on this Vikings football team. You can still see them as a 10 to 12, 13 win football team maybe. But if somebody gave me an argument and told me that the Vikings could take a step back, I would not argue against that. I can see that happening too, but for now, 10 to 13 wins for the Minnesota Vikings. New England Patriots, this is a team that is tough to grade, but I think, honestly, I hate to do it, the Patriots could be in a 3 to 5 win. They could possibly be in a 3 to 5 win. Mac Jones, I've always said he was more of a product to what a guy like Josh McDaniels done to that offense. And we seen last year, he even got benched at some points for Bailey Zappi, even when he was healthy. Defensively, you do have Matthew Judon still. Jonathan Jones, solid. Christian Gonzalez, which I think was a great draft pick at corner for them. But I'm just looking at this team right now, and we're going to see what they're going to get out of Gesicki with that late one of those 2 tight end sets. Juju coming over there as a help. Devontae Parker. Tyquan Thornton's speed is a help. But if they are a 3 to 5 win football team, I wouldn't be shocked. I just don't trust. At this point, Mac Jones' rookie year almost could, I'm not going to say a fluke, but that might have been the best we're could possibly see from them. That's just me. So Patriots 3 to 5. Saints, I can see them as a 6 to 9 win football team, mainly because that division is still I don't think it's very. A lot of those teams are trying to in transition at some point. We know the Bucs are transitioning from Brady. We know the Panthers are transitioning to a new head coach, new quarterback. We know the Falcons are still young and rebuilding. So I think the Saints can win this division by default just by bringing in Derek Carr. And Derek Carr, I think he got a lot of ridicule for what happened with the Raiders last year, and I think a lot of that, my personal opinion, wasn't his fault. I think he has a chip on his shoulder. Kamara, we still have a lot to play out with him as long as the off-the-field stuff. Chris Olave from the Ohio State University. Michael Thomas, the Ohio State University. When Michael Thomas is healthy, he was one of the better receivers in football. Juwan Johnson, solid at tight end. You have a solid offensive line. Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, defensively from the Ohio State University. Pete Warner, the Ohio State University. Demario Davis make up a very solid linebacking core. So I can see them being a 6 to 9 win football team, and they can win this division by default. You know, the Carolina Panthers, I think, could be still right there, win them, even with Bryce Young at quarterback. This Saints team, I think, is going to win this division by default. Now we have the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants were a good team last year. I just don't think they did a ton to really get better. I just don't think they did. And I think Brian Daboll did a very good job with this football team last year. I just don't think they did enough to really get themselves in that hump. I don't. Paris Campbell from the Ohio State, good signing, but it's not going to elevate this team over the top. They didn't add that true one wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt again in the draft, and I think Daniel Jones is at this point not the quarterback for him. I still believe that. I really do. Saquon Barkley carried a lot of that offensive load last year. They bring in Dexter Lawrence, we re-sign him his contract. Leonard Williams, Kayvon Thibodeau really start to show and elevate later on in the season. But when you're looking at this team, they bring in Deontay Banks as well. But I just do not believe that this Giants team has done enough with this roster to really boost them and really get them more than a 6 to 9 win football team. And I don't believe that Daniel Jones is the guy for them. I believe in my heart of hearts at some point Daniel Jones is not going to be the quarterback of the Giants team, whether it's after this year or next year. I just don't believe in him. I still don't. Next is the New York Jets. This one's interesting. This one is very, very interesting. I could see them with this defense being a 10 to 13 win team with Aaron Rodgers when he's. I could see them being right there because this team, I'm not going to say you don't know what you're going to get out of Rodgers, but Rodgers is not in his prime anymore. But I'm going to put them at a 10 to 13 win team. Now, when we look at them last year, some of the injuries and the quarterback play was at them at a 7-win football team. And I could easily believe you have better consistent quarterback play. This team probably was a 10-win team. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to solve that. You have the reigning rookie of the year offensively, and Garrett Wilson from the Ohio State University. Sauce Gardner reigning defensive rookie of the year and one of the better corners already that we have in football. So you add Aaron Rodgers to a team like this with a solid line. They have a very good defense led by Robert Saleh, the head coach. I think this is a 10-win team. Now, of course, Mekhi Becton and some of the pieces on the offensive line have to stay healthy. But when you have Wilson, you have Hardman, you bring in Lazard, You bring in Randall Cobb for the veteran. You have Corey Davis still, who I still think could be productive. Conklin and Uzama at tight end. Rodgers has weapons to spread this football to. It just do. And on the defensive side of the ball with Mosley and Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams, who's one of the better interior pieces up front, I think this team is a 10-win team. It could be a 10-win team. Next, we're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, who goes from a Super Bowl team to have two first-round picks in the next year? And one of them, if everything is right, Jalen Carter is one of the biggest, could be one of the biggest steals in the draft for this team, who were one of the better defensives last year. And you add DeAndre Swift after losing Miles Sanders. Jalen Hurts, MVP candidate. We all know what he can do. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. Quez Watkins was very good for them last year. Still one of the better offensive lines led by the best right tackle in football, Lane Johnson. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox are getting older, but they are still productive. You bring back Darius Slater after the whole mishap of the release and all that. Bradbury. This football team, Hassan Reddick, who was one of the top sack leaders last year. How do you go to the Super Bowl, lose the Super Bowl, have 2 first-round picks, and you still get that much? You still get better. You lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which is a hurt, but this football team, still one of the best teams in the league. Next is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to put them there by default. Mike Tomlin still has not had a losing season in his coaching career. Still. Kenny Pickett, I think he's going to improve more in year 2. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, they add Allen Robinson, Najee Harris, I think the running game is going to be better. Drafting Broderick Jones for left tackle, I think it's going to be good. T.J. Watt missing a lot of the season didn't help, which I think he is going to be healthy. You have Larry Ogunjobi in that middle. Cam Hayward from The Ohio State University, one of the better interior presences that we've seen in football. Micah Fitzpatrick, I think, is possibly the best safety that we have in football. Alex Highsmith, when T.J. Watt was absent, was still a very good productive player. So I think this team is 6-9 wins by default, especially when you have Mike Tomlin as your head coach. He still hasn't had a losing season. Next is the 49ers. I want to put them at 10-13 wins, and I think they can be that, but it's just what they're going to have at quarterback. Is it going to be Lance? Is it going to be Purdy? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? But offensively, when you have McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Samuel, and George Kittle, and you have one of the best offensive lines in football led by Trent Williams. Defensively, you have a very good defense. Nick Bosa, Greenlaw, Warner. Gibson played well for them. Taulonga Hufanga really started to show out last year. And I believe that this football team could be a 10-13 win football team in that NFC West division. Next, the Seattle Seahawks. I can have them at a 6-9 win football team. Adding Jackson Smith-Jigba from The Ohio State University to that football team is going to help Geno Smith have more weapons to throw the football to. Kenneth Walker III was a very good draft pick for them last season. And this defense got better with Draymond Jones added to the front. You get Jamal Adams back healthy. You get one of the best, if not the best, corners in the draft with Devin Witherspoon, with Tariq Woolen on that defensive side of the ball. And on top of that, you bring back Bobby Wagner in the middle of that defense. So this team has gotten better. And I don't know if Geno's going to necessarily recap or redo what he did last year, but he's going to be a very productive quarterback with these weapons in that Seattle Seahawks offense along with that defense. Next, we're going to have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I hate to do it, but I can see them being a 3-5 win football team. You have Devin White, who requested a trade. I don't think they're going to grant it, to be honest with you, but losing Tom Brady, and not necessarily Tom Brady, they didn't have a great year last year with 8-9. You have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, which I don't think solves the quarterback position, especially with Baker. We don't know what Kyle Trask is. Running back position, you don't have much. Rashad White and Chase Edmunds, which is, if you ask me. You do have Godwin, you do have Evans. But the offensive line last year was plagued by a lot of injuries. Defensively, you still have Shaquille Barrett. I don't know what he's going to be after the whole situation and coming off an injury. Vita Vea, one of the better interior presences. Levante David, Devin White, of course. Jamel Dean, solid, but Carlton Davis, solid too. It's just, what is this offense going to be without Brady? I'm not really big. I'm just not big on what this offense can be, despite having Evans and Godwin. Who's going to be throwing them the football? Who's going to be the one being productive at quarterback? And where are they going to get a running game? I just don't see it. 3-5 win. Titans, 3-5 win. Quarterback, we don't know what they're going to get from there either. They had Malik Willis last year. Tannehill, Will Levis slipped in the draft for a reason. Derrick Henry has been that offense all season, but wide receiver core, you don't have much. Treylon Burks is solid, but you don't have much. Offensive line, they lose Taylor Lewan in free agency. They draft Peter Skoronski to help with that offensive line, but on that defensive side of the ball, you have Byer, you have Harold Landry, who's solid, Jeffrey Simmons, who's solid, but what are they going to get from quarterback? Who is the quarterback going to throw the football to? Because they don't have a lot, not even at tight end or at wide receiver. I think this Titans team is in a state of build, and I think that's something they really need to do at this. And we still have a lot of trade rumors surrounding Derrick Henry, so I think this is 3 to 5 win. The Raiders, I think it's a 6 to 9 win football team. Jimmy G, I think, is steady the ship for them. When you have a guy like Devontae Adams in the fold, you have Hunter Renfrow coming back, even though trading Darren Waller was I'm not going to say mistake, but that's going to hurt. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing. You have him coming back. Defensively, Max Crosby, Chandler Jones is going to be hard to block. Tyree Wilson is going to be hard to block. Now, I personally believe that the Raiders could have went elsewhere. They could have went corner with their first-round pick, which I thought they should have went. Even though Tyree Wilson is a very good football player, in my opinion, you look at this secondary, it's not much. And I thought corner would have been the spot where they addressed on this defensive side of the ball, but they ended up going with Tyree Wilson. Not saying Tyree Wilson was a bad player but for what they needed on this football team, either offensive line or corner would have been a good spot for them to go. I still see them as a 6 to 9 win team based off the shrimp, but they can get some things done in the passing game. But defensively, I still don't think they're going to stop very many people with the back end of their defense. So I'm going to have them at 6 to 9 wins. Next is the Washington Commanders. Quarterback, biggest. Question mark. Sam Howell, I just don't know. Jacoby Brissett is a backup. You have a very good wide receiver core with McLaurin and Samuel both from The Ohio State University. Jahan Dotson showed he can really play some football. Brian Robinson Jr. started to get better later on in the year. Antonio Gibson kind of fell in the depth chart. But defensively, I think this is where they're going to lay their hat on. Chase Young is healthy, one of the more dominant pass rushers. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat on that front four. Very, very dominant when they're all health. Corner Kendall Fuller is a very solid corner. Emmanuel Forbes, I think it turned out to be a very, very good corner in this league, and they got him late in the draft, and I think he can turn out to be special. I think he could turn out to be a very special player in this league. That's just me. But offensively, what are you going to get at quarterback? So this is why I'm going to have it 3 to 5 wins, because you have Sam Howell as your quarterback, and we don't know what to make of. But these are my rankings. This is where I'm going to have it. I'm going to leave it just like this. Make sure you guys leave this video a like. Comment you guys' thoughts on my rankings down below. And as always, click the sub button and the notification bell so you not miss anything. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great and excellent day. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.